Before this episode begins, just a quick reminder that we are not professionals in any way. The views, information or opinions expressed in this podcast are solely the views of the individuals involved and by no means represent absolute facts. Opinions expressed by the host and guests can change at any time. G'day guys, welcome to another episode on Let's Talk About It. We are your hosts, Jacob
and Josh.
And today's topic, we are going to get straight into it. This is finding reality in religion. So in today's social landscape, we are continuing to see a decline and demonization of religion. What we would like to discuss is what religion has had to offer for the individual in the benefits of social and societal prosperity, whereas we can find the benefits within religion that serves all people, whether religious or not, and help find the meaning behind the mysticism.
All we're really doing is just taking apart the dogma of religion, the do or die, and turning it into the do and do better.
Yeah.
It's because the thing that gets a lot of people with religion is it's like you've got to dedicate your whole life to it, and everything you do is serving the religion in some way, shape or form. And I think that's very overwhelming for a lot of people, and it takes up aspects of people's lives they'd rather it not. And especially if you're looking at religion off the bat in a not so great light, especially if, religion has done some not so great things in the past. It's also done a lot of good things, It's a bit like everything else in life. It's done some great shit. It's done some really fucking terrible shit. But that's the thing. A lot of it's wrapped around this idea that it has to envelop your whole life and you need to be dedicated to it and you can't step out of it in any way, shape or form. And then also you've got the whole mysticism behind the whole belief as well. There was this Jesus Christ or Allah or Moses or Jesus. You've got all these characters that are supposed to do all these supernatural things. And when you live in today's age and we have the science and the technologies we have, we're like, okay, well, did it though?
Yeah.
And so people kind of get this false image of that it has no purpose in our day and age because it's so outdated and consists of stories that we can't relate to in any way, shape or form, or can't be translated into anything useful or relatable to us. And I personally think that's wrong. Yeah,
I agree.
So it's one of those things where all because part of it is shitty, or at first glance you think to yourself, it doesn't have anything useful for me in this day and age. Well, you got to think to yourself, if so many people in the past have been religious, it's got to have had something worth holding on to.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember, I think it was the Gospels according to Satan. It was the reader or the person that had wrote the book said that he came across a Muslim man and he was having a really good conversation about the indifferences of Christianity and that Muslim religion.
Islam.
So he was having a conversation. So the guy that worshipped Islam was saying that Christianity is like grade 2 and Islam was like grade 5. And what Islam has to offer is far greater than what Christianity has to offer. And the Christians' argument towards that was, well, if you hadn't done grade 2, you wouldn't have been able to do grade 5.
Okay, fair point.
Is grade 2 less important? Or is it just as important because in order to get to that next grade, you had to do grade 2?
It's the whole idea that if you build a house on a shitty foundation, it's not going to last.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's more important, the house you build on the foundation or the foundation the house is built on?
Exactly. Yeah, so we can't just look at it as something of lesser than what we are currently being offered, because at some stage it was actually offering something more than what was being
offered before
it. So in terms of like living by the senses, well, the the senses that we have is that if we continue to use our egos to push forward in society with I'm better than you, if you disagree, I'm going to fight you, it sort of brought this equality to all people, that we are not there. We are not just the ego. We are more than. And if we wish to do more, then we need to look at something that is greater than just the individual, greater than all people, that all people can also move towards as well. So when Christ was came and he was offering these teachings, he was giving them more than what they were able to comprehend. And that for them was something worth doing because it had some type of light within it. And it gave them ultimate purpose in a time where things were considered to be unjust at that very moment. So it brought power to the individual, not just to people of riches, but people that were in poverty. And that's why Christ went to the people that were in poverty, because they had nothing. And within his word, he was able to give them something.
Yep.
And that to them was good. And for the individual to learn what Christ was saying and to look up to Christ as a figure worth striving to be like, it can almost give a person a complete meaning within their life.
Yeah. I mean, even talking about like the whole poor, rich and all that, but even if you look at just the actual practicing of religion, even say today, if you go to church or you go to a church service, it's not specifically for a set group or type of person. Yes, it's for religious people, but all sorts of people are religious. So you could sit in a church and there could be homeless people and millionaires, but they're all there for one reason. They all have one thing in common. They all believe in this one thing. It all brings them together. They have a community, even though they're so far apart. And you got to think to yourself, in what other situation would that happen?
Yeah.
I can't think of one. And so it's like, even in today's day and age, I feel like this is probably why it was such a strong thing in the past, but it brought people from all walks of life together to realize that we have the same, for the most part, we have the same struggles, we have the same reasoning. We're just in different walks of life, and that shouldn't really pull us apart as much as it does in our day and age. And so I think that it's a strong thing to be able to bring everyone together and say, hey, you've all got something in common. There's no need to fight. Let's work together to be better people. And like this, the whole thing with Christ, people are like, well, Christ can't be someone that existed. Okay, Christ doesn't actually have to have existed. He doesn't ever have needed to walk on this earth. The idea of Christ, he was supposed to be the most perfect man to walk on earth. And everyone, the whole thing is supposed to be more Christ-like. Well, if he was the most perfect person on earth, and we're talking like morally here, is that a bad thing?
No, I think it's something that is definitely worth striving for.
I mean, okay, here's a situation for you. I thought about this the other day. What would be the difference? When you're a kid, right? Some kids, they have a poster of a sports star on their wall. Say, for example, saying, I want to be like Mike. You have Michael Jordan on your wall. When you're a kid, you think to yourself, oh, I want to be like Mike. I'm going to train like him. I'm going to be like him. I'm going to take his attitude. I'm just going to work really hard. What's the difference between that and looking at a statue of Jesus?
Mm.
You look at Jesus and you go, well, look, I need to be more morally upright. I need to look at myself. I need to look into myself. I need to be a better, more morally right version of me. I need to be more righteous. And I look to Jesus for that. How is that any different to the kid looking at the poster of Michael Jordan?
Yeah. And what you can look at, you can say, oh yeah, Christ isn't real. And we obviously know that Michael Jordan's real.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they both have something to offer to the individual. And if you look up to, let's just say Michael Jordan, as you get older and become more like what habits he does.
More like Mike.
Yeah, more like Mike. Follow the habits and follow the thought patterns that he says and does. then yeah, who you will become is something very close to.
I mean,
Michael.
you never. But the whole point is you're never going to be Mike. Just like no one is ever going to be Jesus.
Yeah.
And I don't care which motherfucker says they are Jesus. You're fucking nuts and sit the fuck down.
Especially when you don't even follow the laws that God puts forward. I mean, like, that's the thing. I mean, like, it's giving you Christ, and it's saying this is the most perfect man, and you follow those types of things, and when you follow those types of things, you become more like. So Christ is actually, when it is being said in the Bible, is that it's you. But for it to be you, you must be like him.
Yeah.
So you can't just say, oh, that's what it means, I'm Christ.
Yeah.
No, you need to follow in the footsteps that which he.
Yeah.
What would Jesus do? What would he do in the situation? It's just like, I mean, like, look at Kanye. He's pretty fucking nasty.
I mean, look, Kanye's doing his own thing, I guess. But it's the whole point of, like, okay, if we were to look, this is the whole point of taking the reality away from the mysticism. So if I said Jesus to someone could go, oh, this dude that's in the Bible that, you know, apparently did a whole bunch of shit, but it's not real. So, like, there's no point. But I'm like, okay, Jesus doesn't need to be real in order for the positives of his story or of who he was as a person to be real. So Jesus doesn't actually have needed to have been a person in order for his set of morals to be right. That doesn't matter. The point is, Jesus is just the figure. It's the idea. And because I actually used to be really atheist. I was like, there's no thing as God, like, nothing exists. We die, we rot in the ground, and that's it. And all religion can go fuck itself because it's a bunch of hocus pocus bullshit.
And it's funny because I was almost like that not long ago.
But the thing is like, if you take the time to sit with ideas you don't agree with and take time to analyze them, you start to find some useful shit in them.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with this whole, like, for me, it was like, okay, well, obviously religion does something for people, because so many people, I think this is probably one of the first generations where there are less religious people than there are religious. I don't even know if that's true. There might still be more religious people, but I know it's probably on the biggest downcline it's been since forever. But it had to have been doing something right in order for all those people to have followed it.
Yeah.
And, you know, some people are really religious. Some people just believe in their religion but don't necessarily commit. But the point is that the lessons are still there to be learnt. And if you take away the mysticism, there's actually some pretty fucking good lessons in there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But it's, you just don't get lost in the mysticism. Or if you want to get lost in the mysticism, sure. But don't get weirded out when other people don't.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for example, one of the biggest things with the whole Christ situation is the idea that he performed all these miracles. And they were all things that are, if in today's day and age, you would look at and go, no fucking way. Didn't happen. That's ridiculous. Shut up. Let's take away the mysticism for a second. What is, in all of these miracles, what is he actually doing? He's a person who is able, giving to someone who is unable. A lot of fucking times for a lot of his fucking life. That's just charity. The dude was just a really fucking charitable bloke. And a lot of people liked that about him.
Yeah.
And they followed him for it. I mean, if you take away the mysticism of none of this being real, it's like, it doesn't matter if any of it happened or not. The point is that he went out of his way to help all these people who couldn't help themselves, and continued to do that time after time. It doesn't matter if it actually happened, because the lesson is there. If you're able and someone else is not able, make the effort to help them.
Yeah.
Help your fellow man. Help your fellow woman. Help your fellow child. If you're able and you can see someone's not doing the great, give them a helping hand. It doesn't need to be the ability to see or, you know, something grand like that. Just simply asking, you know, hey, are you all right? Do you need some help? Or anything like that. I think everyone could benefit from that.
Yeah.
And that's another lesson that gets wrapped up in this mystical package and gets shipped off. And then everyone's like, no, not buying it. It's a complete waste of time. don't want to hear about it. It's like, well, hang on. Let's just unwrap the package a little bit. Let's see what's on the inside.
Yeah. I mean, like, we can look at Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa was wasn't that long ago. And I can't remember what the book's called. I think it's Follow My Light. And it's an autobiography about Mother Teresa. And it starts off from the beginning of her being in the church and ends up having this vision with Christ in it that calls her to India. So it took her a while to actually get to India because she had to convince the church itself. But when she did go to India, what she had done for those people was far beyond what anyone by themselves has ever done. In a good term, I mean, like, one person can do a lot of bad shit, and we know this. But because Mother Teresa was acting in the best interest of Christ, everyone that was in poverty benefited from it.
Yeah.
And what is so bad about that? And she gave herself wholly to Christ. Everything about her was Christ. Anyone that was living with her or knew of her knew that everything was about Christ.
Yeah.
So when she was going out helping people would say she is on a whole new level. It felt like you were with something great, something big. And all she was doing was just following what she thought to be the right thing, and that was to follow in Christ. Everyone benefited. So, I mean, like, if, let's just say, the person that was living in poverty at the time had came across Mother Teresa and she did her what can be considered miracles or her charity, to the individual, it's going to feel like a miracle. It's just like, I was living in utter filth, starving, dehydrated, didn't have the things or the necessities to get by.
Yeah.
And she came like a miracle. But it was in our best interest to do the charity work.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, you look at what it says in the Bible, and I don't know the actual name of the person that was on the boat, but saw Christ walking on water. When he called out to Christ, or they were first crying because they thought it was some demon, but he said, never mind, it's just me. Then the person that was calling out to Christ says, if it is Christ, allow me to walk on water as well, or come to you. And he says, come. And he begins to walk on water. But as the wind blows, he starts to fear and he begins to sink. And Christ takes his hand just before he sinks. And he says, O ye boy, have little faith. And when his faith is restored in Christ, he's able to resurface from the water. So if we look at that, is that he's walking on he's doing the impossible, but as soon as something happens, he sinks and he loses his faith in what he is doing in following Christ. So, I mean, like, if we look at a situation where, let's just say, we began to do something in current society, like make a business, we never thought we could do that. And as soon as it gets a little tough, we begin to freak out and we begin to sink. If we were to cling on to what it is that we're doing and continue to follow that, maybe, just maybe, it might work out. We might be able to stop sinking in it. But at the moment we begin to lose faith in whatever it is that we're doing and begin to fear and think the worst of things are going to start going a little bit downhill from there.
And that's it. If you hear, because that's another thing, you hear the story of walking on water. Well, no fucking way. Well, it's like, well, hang on, let's just unwrap the package a little bit and let's find. And I think that's what a lot of people who do follow religion is, I think they are able to do that. They don't necessarily actually have to believe in the deities that's in front of them. I mean, yes, within the religion, it does tell you that there is only one God and I am God and you must, follow me and not use my name in vain and stuff like that. And cool, if you want to go for that, sure. But I think for me personally, it was like, because I think atheism is a bit of the go-to these days. Like, you kind of just, I'm an atheist and that's it. And I didn't actually realize it, but atheism isn't not believing there's God. It's like being anti-religious. And I actually don't think anyone should be wholly anti-religious at all. That's just my personal opinion, you know. Don't shoot me for it.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't think it's good for someone to hold themselves completely accountable to an idea unless they do something in the act of holding themselves accountable to the idea, then hold accountability just in case it is bad. It's just like if you shot someone out of atheism and say, oh, it wasn't out of atheism, it's just like, well, you did do it out of atheism.
Yeah, it's you kind of starting to sound like Hitler there.
So,
and they're also touching on the whole God thing. Okay, God is supposed to be this almighty being who created us in his own image, and he is supposed to be able to watch us, look down upon us, see us at all times, and we're judged by God. Only God can judge us. Now, if you were to take religion seriously at face value, meaning that there is quite literally someone watching you at all times, ask yourself this. Do you act better when you know you're being watched or when you know you're not being watched?
yeah, you would want to act.
Sorry, if you know that there is this big old dude who's judging everything you do, and at the end of your life, you are going to be held accountable for those actions, whether you go to hell or heaven, whether you burn forever or go to what would be considered a utopia, you would act like the most virtuous, moral person to exist, because you would believe that you are being held responsible for every act. And I don't necessarily, I mean, yes, you could take it to the extreme and say, well, wouldn't that just cause someone to become paranoid? And it's like, well, yes, maybe. But then there's also the idea that you can be forgiven for sin. But I think over time, it'd make you act better and better and better and better. If you're being held, if the whole idea is that you're held accountable for your actions, compared to someone who has no religion, who is never held accountable for shit. I mean, we all know people who think they can get away with everything and not face the consequences. They're usually little shits. Whereas if your religion is based off the idea that you don't get away with anything, therefore you need to better yourself if you don't want to burn forever. Bro, I'd start being the best person I have ever been in my entire, better than I could have ever imagined. Why? Yeah. Because I don't want to burn.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's this whole idea that if someone's always watching you, of course you're going to be a better person. You're not going to be a better person for yourself. You're going to be a better person for them. But in turn, you end up becoming a better person for yourself. And it no longer becomes you having to try to be a better person, because you just will be a better person.
Yeah, it will no longer be something to be paranoid over. It's just, if anything, something that you are eventually.
And it'd be something to be thankful for.
Yeah.
And if you thought about it, everyone in your community was all doing this at the same time, it probably would be a pretty good community. I'm not going to lie.
Absolutely. I mean, we can look at the current state in someone's path, you could say, and go, yeah, it's not quite that good. And it's probably the manifestations of what has happened around them to be acting in accordance to what they can think to be the just thing at that time. So whatever you think to be the best thing within that time is everything that has happened prior to get to this point. So if you have this knowledge, the things that the Bible is putting forward, and you were able to act better knowing that people only judge because deep down they judge themselves, or they're trying to survive, so to say, then it makes you less paranoid at the fact of people's actions. It makes you more compassionate. And that knowledge is something worth having in a society that, let's just say, isn't doing too good with its own ignorance. So if we look at the atheist, for example, they look at the science. They take the science and go, well, that can't be there if this is here. And I haven't had time to digest what this book that I'm currently listening to. It's about the teachings of Meister Eckhart. And it goes on that to say, if you are aware of a tree but unaware of the tree, you would unaware of what the tree is or how it has come to be, then you would probably put it to as it's a mystery. It's only God knows. But the more you investigate into the tree, and let's just say if it is a part, that thing that which is God, then you find out everything that has to be about that tree, then you might know that part of God, so to say. So if you are able to become more aware of the things that are surrounding you and put it to something greater than just science itself, as something beautiful, because we can look at a tree and go, that is a beautiful tree, even if we know that it's just a manifestation. We can still look at it with its actual beauty. But the thing is that if we just look at it from the science and see how that the world is because of just a bunch of accidents that have happened to manifest on itself, then it doesn't make you any less of a human, because out of that your ego will only build up on its concepts, and only will that find the ego will probably try to find its foothold on where it can actually gain some type of social height. So it's not exactly a thing that you would want to be carrying around as a person, thinking that you know everything, and then going to other people and saying, no, you're wrong. You're not going to be a very liked person. But that's a part of you now. You take your thoughts so seriously. Now, if you are what the religion is saying...
I just want to add in quickly. That's the difference between an ideology, like religions, and an ideology. An ideology is the whole idea that you know the answer to everything. Not even religions say they know the answer to everything. Even religions sometimes go, hey, we don't fucking know.
Yeah.
It just is what it is.
Yeah.
Whereas you've got the ideology that says, no, I know everything, and I'm right and you're wrong, and that's how it is for every single thing to ever exist, so get used to it.
Yeah. See, like, within that, if you've got the religion which is saying that everything is God and you are under God, then you are not more than what you would know. But if you think that you know everything, and that makes everything, let's just say what atheism puts forward as worthless, then we're looking at two different egos. One that looks at things to be the manifestation of God, and if we find out the truth behind those things, we can be brought closer to God or understand God, but still be humble to it, because we are still less than God. Yeah. But if we're looking at it from the perspective of science has this to offer, I understand that, and that is pretty much just a manifestation of nothingness, then what type of thing are you bringing on for yourself if you just look at your own life and go, it's just a manifestation of nothing? Well, you can say that. But when the ego steps in to build some concepts on it, you're probably going to turn into a fucking asshole.
Well, are you gonna turn into anything?
Well, that's the thing. It has to turn into something, because at the end of the day, we still have to survive. We still look at a social setting and go, where can we find some type of foothold? Because we're still living, and it's in our best interest, whether we know it or not, to survive. Yeah. And if survival is within a social setting, then yes, it would probably be in your best interest to take whatever you know to be, or consider to be the best thing that you do know, as some type of social foothold. Do you get where I'm coming from? If it like takes in your whole thoughts, and if it's becoming part of what you think about,
it's the whole idea that you should possess your thoughts. Your thoughts shouldn't possess you. So it's like the idea that you have yourself, who is a solid grounding, and then you look in to ideas and pull them apart and see the lessons that could be learnt within them, instead of an idea going in you, tearing you apart, and then you becoming the idea. It's like, that's why a lot of people get super uppity when you say, well, I don't believe, or I don't agree with your idea. It's because in their minds, you're not disagreeing with the idea, you're disagreeing with them as a person. And it's like, well, no, it's like the same thing with, as like I said, I used to be like super atheist. I went to a Christian school for like 2 years, and when I was there, my whole thing, like, I used to think it was hilarious that in Christian studies I'd be like, well, God just doesn't exist, what's the point, haha. Whereas now I'm like, I was a fucking idiot. Like, I was so caught up in the idea of busting the lie of an existence of a God that I never actually looked at the fact that there was much to be learnt from God, whether or not, or much to be learnt from the religion in general, whether or not it was real. It didn't matter. At the end of the day, it just didn't matter. The lessons were still there.
And there was still something to learn from.
And there was still something to learn. Yeah. So it was stupid of me. And this is the thing. This was why I'm like, for some people, you got to take the mysticism away from the reality and find the reality within the mysticism. Because some people will throw the entire book in the bin because the front page says Holy Bible.
Yeah.
And I did the same thing. I was like, fuck this. What's the point? Like, this is some shit from fucking ages ago. Get it out of here. It's outdated. Has nothing to do with my current life. And it's all based on a myth.
And you probably would have began to build this nihilistic view of everything as well.
Oh, yeah. It was like, well, if it's science. Just science.
And that's what I was trying to discuss. I wasn't trying to put all atheists in the fucking garbage. But what I'm trying to put forward is that if you continue to go down that path, you will not only call yourself an atheist, but you also develop a very nihilistic view of life.
Yeah.
So,
well, it was like,
I'm just putting that forward. I'm not trying to put all people in the fucking aside. I'm not trying to make religion seem like this deity that we all need to worship. I'm just saying that there is truth within it. And even though that we can look at things as complete nothingness, it's still probably within our best interest to find something that brings some type of worthy within it.
Yeah. And I think that goes with a lot of ideas. Like, or even, so it's funny because when I think about it now, I'm like, if I really thought about it, the Bible's kind of just a self-help book in certain aspects of it, because it teaches, I was reading this book or listening to it. It was Religion for Atheists. And in it was like the schools, the universities, all that teaches you how to make a living, or acquires you with the skills in order to pursue a career that will make you a living. Whereas the purpose of religion was to teach you how to live. Because we can go to school, we can go to all these things, and they don't teach you how to be a person. They teach you how to build your capital as a person, but they don't teach you the moral standards that you should have, where you should strive to, where you should go when you have certain problems, who you should look up to, what you should do, how you should develop meaning in your life.
Yeah, it's more or less for the parent to make that.
Yeah, it's up to the parent. And if your parent has grown up in the school system and only the school system, well, then they're not going to be any better off than that child was. But then that's also another thing with religion as well. It's like these days, everybody's striving for perfection. The closer you can get to perfection, the better. Like, we reward perfection. But the whole idea was, in religion, it was like no one's perfect. The only perfect person was Jesus. And the whole idea is no one can be Jesus. You can't be perfect. That's not going to happen. So stop thinking that your only need in life is to become Jesus. Just be more like Jesus.
Yeah.
Do better for yourself. You're not going to be perfect, and that's okay. It's a part of life. It's a part of living. You're not going to be perfect, and that's okay. Like, a lot of people, especially with social media and shit, I mean, all you're seeing is perfection, and most of it isn't real. but it doesn't matter that it's not real because you're looking at it and comparing yourself to it anyway. So
you're still judging that and yourself at the same time.
Exactly. So then you're like, oh, well, fuck, I'm not perfect and these people are. And it's like, well, in reality, they're not perfect either.
Yeah.
But it's the whole idea that we can all come together with our imperfection. And this was what he was talking about. We could all come together with our imperfections and look to something greater than all of us and be like, this is the direction we want to head in. We want to be better people. And the thing which is like, it didn't matter what you looked like. It was your morals. Your morals was the thing that mattered. It's what you were, what you thought, not how you looked. And yet religion kind of makes it less materialistic. It was more about the content within you. I mean, the whole idea, like in Christianity, if you had riches, a rich man would have a harder time getting into heaven than a poor man ever would. And it was kind of like, so if you were rich, to be charitable was not only good for the poor man, but it was good for you to be able to get into heaven. It was kind of like, it was almost like, it wasn't tax, but it was kind of like heaven tax.
Yeah, exactly.
It was like, bro, if you want to get into heaven, you kind of need to give away some of that shit.
Yeah. I think also if you look at like, if you can look at like Christ as something to be considered of the thing that you strive to be, and if you have more than what you actually need, then it probably would be at the back of your mind that you do see people that have less than you. You do have more than what you need, and you could actually do something with that. It may or may not be at the back of your mind, but it also might be a thought that occurs. I've got a little extra. This person has nothing. Let's make not only ourselves feel better, but the thing that within the person that isn't doing so great. If we look at like what is being said within the Bible is that God is everything. You are God. You're perfecting yourself out to what God has said to be the right thing. So if you're looking at God from the perspective of poverty and yourself as God from the perspective of riches, then wouldn't it be in the best interest to take that part of God to the next part of God, so that way you do not have to see God suffer? And that's all that's trying to be said, is that, and pretty much what Christ looks at the world as everything to be God, and he sees the poverty within the cities and the hunger, and he feeds them. He gives them life worth living. If he saw everything to be as God itself, then it would have been in his best interest to try and lift God out of that position. He wouldn't want to see God from that perspective. He would want God to have life, have something worth living for. That ain't so bad.
And the thing is, I can completely demystify that entire story by turning the word God into you.
Yeah.
If you saw someone else and you saw them to be a person just like you, and you knew if that was a part of you or if you were in that situation, you would consider it a miracle for someone to come help you.
Yeah.
And so if someone does come help you, they rise you while they also feel good about doing it. Why? Because they know if you were them or if they were you, they would appreciate the same thing and they've done something good.
Yeah.
And so, and the thing is, you could you could throw the whole thing out because of the word God. As soon as some people hear the word God, they throw a book out. One of Jordan Peterson's book was kind of like that. Some people would read it, and as soon as he started mentioning God, it was like, yeet, get rid of that. And it's like, if you can just change the word God with something else, it completely demystifies the entire thing, and it makes sense.
Yeah, and you might actually find something that you don't know into your life where it could actually serve some type of meaning.
And and also with the whole religious thing, it's like people follow religion religiously.
Yeah.
They follow it religiously. If your whole entire life is set around these set of ideas, you're going to pursue it so much harder than anyone else who... This was another thing. It's like most people read a book once and that's it. You probably read, say for example, it's some sort of informational book about a certain topic. You read it. You'll keep certain parts of that information and you'll forget others. You might forget some really good pieces. They're going to come in handy later on down your life, but you only read the book once, so you forget about it. Whereas with the Bible, if you're specified by the Bible to read certain parts of the Bible on certain days, certain times a week, you're not going to forget those things. I feel like there was one thing that religion did take into account is the fact that we forget. And so the Bible, you read certain parts multiple times and you remember those parts, and then they can come in handy later down the road. Any of the things that it tells you to do in the Bible, unlike that book that told you to go sort your shit out, you read it once and thought, you know what? Yeah, I should sort my shit out. You read it once and that was it. 2 weeks later, you forget about sorting your shit out, and you're back to where you were before you read the book. You might have the information in your head maybe still, or you might have forgotten about it, but you haven't taken action on it. Why? Because there's nothing compelling you to. Whereas with a religion, if it's your life and the book tells you to do something, and you will be judged if you do not, you are going to do it. You have a meaning to do it. You have a purpose to do it. And you won't just read that section once. You'll read it over and over again. Why? Because the Bible tells you to, or whatever it is tells you to. And then it'll get stuck. And it won't be that you'll forget it. You'll remember it so much that whenever a situation comes along in life where a certain aspect of that could come in handy, and I'm not talking about the mysticism, I'm talking about the actual lessons to be learnt within the reality, then you're going to implement it. It's just it'll just be something that you just do because you do it religiously.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, if you were to base your, let's just say, for example, if you have this goal and your goal is to get like a really nice car, but it's super fucking expensive. So if you were to look at that idea of you owning that car, for example, or a house, then you would go, okay, well, what needs to be done to get there? I need to draw some type of map. So let's just say you don't have a job, you still live with your parents, and blah, 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 blah. So you start off by going, okay, I need a job. I need something that pays decent. It's just like, well, actually, I've got no experience. Okay, well, maybe I should start at the bottom. So you start working at like a fast food joint and stuff. You gain enough experience to end up in another job that pays a little bit more. Gain enough experience, go to another job. That's pretty much what I've done. From what I used to make when I first started work to what I make now is a different fucking story.
Yep.
So if you were to continuously build up your experience on the concept of trying to get to where it is that you want to be, then you would act in your best interest to get to that position. So if you get to the job that pays good and it's just like, okay, well, I want this good car. Maybe I need a house for me to store it in. I don't want to keep it at my parents. So you save, you do what is necessary to get to the house. You've got the house and it's like, okay, let's just keep bringing all that money in and stuff. You get the car and it's just like, not only have you got the car, you've also got the house, you've got all this experience, and now you can do just as much as what you could before than what you could do now.
Yeah. And the thing is, whenever a situation comes in the future, I mean, you're going to, not only have you got the material to show for it, but you're going to be a better person for it. You're going to have that mentality, that mindset. And then whenever in any other section of life, something comes around that could be useful in, it's going to be right there, ready to go. You're going to remember it. Why? Because you've spent your entire life dedicated to this way of life or this goal that you're striving for. But then if you were to say that goal was Jesus and the experience I needed was in the Bible, well, then people would go, it's fucking bullshit. Throw it. Get rid of it. That's not going to help anyone. Whereas when you change it into reality or something that has nothing to do with religion whatsoever, people are like, yeah, no, I could see that. It's like, well, hang on. If you were to just unwrap this package over here a little bit, you'd see the exact same story. So it's you shouldn't throw it out because of that.
Yeah.
You don't throw out your Christmas gift because it was wrapped in some shitty looking wrapping paper.
It might be pretty good in there.
Yeah, it might be some good shit in there, but you don't know if you throw the present out before you open it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it just involves more investigation. It's not like you learning about these things is going to waste your time. It may. but there might also be something in it. I mean, like, I've listened to a few books that have just made me go, that was shit.
Yeah.
But it's just like, at the same time, there was one or two things that I could have grabbed that I did grab from it, and it's just like, you know what, that made it a little bit worth it.
Yeah.
So, you know, even if you look at the Bible and go, it's just mystic bullshit, then it's just like, well, was there anything that you could grab from it, or was there something that was confusing you, or that something that rang the bell that made you go, huh?
But also, I want to point out what you said there. You said this is mystic bullshit. Well, yes, if you focus on just the mysticism, it is kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
But if you take the mysticism and find the reality within the mysticism, there's some nuggets of gold in there.
Yeah.
If you dig through it a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And when people talk about the idea of religion and say how there's things in it that have had bad things, like stoning of people and slavery and shit. You know, we look at it from a time, I don't know, probably 1,000 years or 2,000 years ago, when those things would have been considered more acceptable than what we would, honestly. I mean, like, we wouldn't drag anyone out into the streets now and start stoning them. It's just not right. But at that time, it probably was the most right thing to do.
Yeah, that was just the way of life.
So when it says in there that when the law is set, that if people actually break the rules, then it gives them the authority to do the stoning. But it's just like, if the rules weren't there and they were just following the idea of, you did this, you deserve to be stoned, but it's not actually anything to be justified over someone's losing of their life,
yeah,
then a lot of people were just dying under the idea of, I don't know, I just don't like him, I'm just going to make some bullshit up. And it says it in there that if anyone that lies about it will be punished for it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, it just helped people look at it from the best interest of doing the right thing and not trying to hurt on anybody under the sake of, I'm just really upset by this person. And, you know, the slavery thing is just like, if people looked at the Bible and saw that people should be treating their slaves a bit better, then, you know, even though the person was under the master and being a slave, probably thought, you know what, I'm living a little bit better since he's read this book, because it's in his best interest to treat everyone just as good. So, I mean, like, it's not that it not only offered some bad things, what we consider to be bad today, but it made it a little bit more easier.
Yeah. I think it's with that. And this is the thing, like, with religion, I think, people throw it out for the mysticism. People throw it out for the terrible shit that's happened in the past. I mean, almost every religion's had some shitty shit it's done. Yeah. And 100%, that's not great. You shouldn't look up to that whatsoever. And if you do, I mean, you're a piece of shit, but that's just a personal opinion of mine. But that doesn't mean that there isn't nuggets of gold in the dog shit. Yeah. You might just find some good stuff in the shit. Yeah. And I don't think you should, and it's like, reading a Bible isn't going to, you know, cause you to murder someone. Yeah. It's not like it comes with a great cost, but it could give you some good new ideas. Yeah. And that was the thing with religion. Religion set out like places you could go when you had certain problems, and not just like physical problems, but in terms of like, it looked after, the thing with religion, it focused on the fact that we don't just live off of material. We need something else as well.
And I think that's when Christ says man can not only just live off bread.
Yeah, exactly.
He was offering other things.
And what was it? When I can't remember who the quote was from. It was like, "Oh, God is dead. We've killed God." Nietzsche. And the thing that was after that was like, man is destined to either become is just destined to basically spiral into nihilism, because there is now no greater purpose. And it was like, at what cost it was okay, yes, it was good to kill God, I guess, in some ways, but it was also a fucking nightmare in others, because you've taken away this meaning that united everybody, or communities of people, and brought them together from all classes. And then you've kind of thrown this thing out the window, and you expect people to just be like, oh, okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
No, I'm all good.
Yeah. Well,
And because not only have you thrown out the idea of God, you also then throw out all the institutions and the networks that are connected to that. That's a massive change. You can't just expect to do that and everything be A-okay. It's just not going to work that way.
I mean, like, if a society was under the idea that for everything to work, we needed to believe in God, then everyone in that society would have God within their best interest. So it sort of built some type of relation to not just friendship groups, but to everybody. No. So, you know, it's just like people that like football are going to hang out with other people that like football because they share the similar ideas. People that believe in Christianity, they're going to be friends with other Christians because
similar ideas.
Similar ideas.
But the thing is, though,
and it brought together.
I feel like it's good to be friends with other people that play football, whereas I think when it comes to real religion, it's not that you just believe in the same idea, it's you believe in the same morals, you believe in the same way of life, which I think is probably why it was a bit deeper and why it was so successful in terms of a lot of people being religious.
But just so we can go over some of the notes, I mean, like chapter 7, verse 3 to 5, we've got Christ that says, "And why beholdest thou the mote, which is the speck, that is in thy brother's eye, but not considerest the beam in thine own eye? Or how wilt thou say to thy brother, Let me pull out the mote out of thine own eye, and behold, a beam is in thine own eye? Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam in thine own eye, and then shalt see clearly to cast out the mote in thy brother's eye." Even though that's hard to understand, if you allow it to digest a little bit.
Just break it down a little bit.
Break it down.
Unwrap the packaging a little bit.
Yeah. Is that for you to judge another individual for what you can consider to be not right in your idea, and you point out that this is what's wrong, then who really has the problem? If their path is set on whatever it is that they want to do, but you are judging them based on whatever you believe to be right, then who really has the problem?
Yeah.
Pull out the idea of what you think to be right and look at them then.
Yeah.
And go, nah, they're not that bad actually. I'm just being a little bit too harsh. So I mean, like, it just basic behaviors that can help one another in social settings and stuff. Just get by. Just accept that people have ideas and people are going to look at the world a little bit different compared to others. I mean, like you said, it's if you were to step into my shoes, you probably would eventually just be me.
Yeah, that was what was it? I mentioned it in one of the other episodes. It was, if I was you, I was born with your genes, grew up in your family household, did what you did, I would grow up to be you. I wouldn't be any different.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't expect yourself to be any different.
Yeah.
So when you look at someone and you go, why are they the way they are? You should be asking yourself, well, if I was to go through the exact same shit as them, would I be the exact same person as them? And the answer is always yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's the whole thing. And this is it. Like, we're able to point out all these things. And to be fair, I haven't even looked into religion that long. Like, I've looked at it, I've unraveled it, because I didn't necessarily agree with it. I was a pretty pretty atheist, like, fuck God. God's dead. Nietzsche's my man. But I spent a bit of time with it and I was like, well, actually, no, there's some good shit in here.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point. It's the idea that if you take the mysticism away from the reality, you have a good set. Like, it's a good thing to base a community off of in terms of the morals and just the way it goes about teaching. I think it's a great book. Do I personally agree with the mysticism side of it? No. I think it's, but the thing is, I also think it's needed, because I don't think it's as impactful without it. Because if, like I said, with the whole God thing, if you genuinely feel someone is watching you and judging you, you're going to do better. Whereas if you didn't believe God was an actual being, well, then you wouldn't be compelled to do anything in this book.
Yeah.
So I've also come to understand why it's there and why you need it to be there. And if it wasn't there, it just wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Like, you need this greater thing. I mean, even for the purpose, to live up to Jesus and God. If you don't believe, if you believe they're not real, they never existed, well, then you're not going to be as compelled
to give yourself wholeheartedly
to give yourself to it, and also be more like them, because then it goes from be more like someone who existed and who was made in your image and who you should look up to and looks down on you and appreciates you, to try and live up to this list. I'm going to list all the things that he was, and you do you, buddy. But, just try to strive to any one of these.
Yeah, I mean, like, and that's what Jordan Peterson says when they asked him, "Do you believe in God?" And he said, "I live my life like I do."
That's a great fucking way to put it.
It's not that. I mean, like, he's sort of sitting on the fence a little bit here. He's saying, "Look, at some point, but at the same time, it probably would be in my best interest to live my life as if it were real.
Yeah.
Because it is offering something." I mean, like, I kind of want to break down a little bit on what is actually God, because if we look at God to be everything, and if we look at something that we just don't quite understand, but we want to understand it, and we begin investigating on what has actually led it to be that thing, then everything that you come to understand of that thing that you want to understand has led you closer to God. You understand what it is that has that urge of within you to go further into it. It's not that it wasn't worth your time. It was that you received something out of it, the need to know something, and you know now.
Yeah.
And that hole within you has been filled. You understand. I mean, like, you're not going to know everything before you die. You're going to know some things, but not everything. And we also look at Christ as he says throughout. I've mainly just gone through the gospel according to Matthew, and he says things that are within the future and the things that are going to happen. But despite the horrible ending, he still continues to do the things that are required in order for him to get to that point in the most righteous way possible, despite the bad ending. So if we look at the things that haven't happened to us yet, that are going to happen without us knowing, and we call it within the best interests of God, then whatever it is that is going to happen, we would want to have it in our best interest to act in the most righteous way possible and carry the right ideas.
That almost sounds like, in a way, it's almost like a base of Viktor Frankl's logotherapy.
Yeah.
It no longer becomes why me, it's try me.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. I mean, like, if we can just look at whatever is going to happen as something that needs to happen, well, then take up your cross and bear it. Because whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Just think about whatever is within that situation on how you want to act. If you want to kick and scream, go for it. But if you want to hold yourself to whatever you can consider to be the best thing or the last thing that you want to be doing in a horrible situation, just know that it was within your own best interest to act accordingly and not go out kicking and screaming.
Yeah, who do you think ends up better off in that situation? The one who's kicking and screaming, or the one that's actually holding themselves, their morals?
Exactly. And that's what, like, it says in what Viktor Frankl says in his book is, we have man that made the gas chamber, but then we also have the man that walked up right into it.
Yeah.
You know, that's something that is strong. We have the horrible thing that man is doing to another man, But at the same time, there's still someone that
There's
is
still the
willing
man
to
who-
bear their
yeah.
cross.
Who held themselves together right to the end,
Yeah.
even in the eyes of certain death.
Yeah.
They were still able to stand there and go, no, I am going to take this.
Yeah. And it just shows that there's no matter what, we can make the decision in any given moment. We can choose how we wish to act.
Yeah.
And if it's in your best interest to act accordingly right to the end, then you will do so.
Yeah.
You will take up your cross. You will bear it and know that at the end you did what you thought was right.
And that's the thing, like a lot of people don't have that meaning these days. And in a religious society, it was handed to you on a silver platter.
Yeah.
And so I feel like when we talk about the increase of nihilism and stuff these days, it's because no one hands you that meaning. No one, and it sounds childish, but we are all children at some point. And I feel like probably for almost all people, part of you will always be childish. So a lot less people would be nihilistic if they were given, and we're not just talking about a meaning. Like if you were to take religion, like a proper religious person, like have it embody your life, that meaning is really fucking powerful compared to a lot of other meanings. Like if my meaning is to live a good life, it's like, well, it's not specific and there's not really any criteria for that. And by the time you hit the littlest little bit of resistance, you're probably going to fall into the water and drown.
Yeah.
Whereas when your meaning is to serve, live up to something so great that it cannot be present on this earth, and that the reward for that is living in utter utopia at the end of it, bro, I'm going to try my more fucking hardest.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And like a lot of people, I thought about it the other day, like some people were like, well, religion, you know, it's such a commitment. There's all these, and for me, like, I'm like, I look at religion, I'm like, whew, that's effort. Like that's a lot of stuff. But I also think about it as A, it gives you the meaning, but B, religion has a lot of structure. There's things you need to do at certain times. There's places you need to be. There's certain people you need to talk to and all this other stuff. If that's the base structure of your life, do you not think that the rest of your life would start to become a lot more structured
And be able to
around
take-
it?
Yeah, and be
It
able
would-
to take on hard or harsh environments.
Or even more
yeah.
tasks, because you would be so used to living in a world where structure and being on time and precision is what is the norm. It's what is required. That the rest of your life would just follow suit. So not only have you been given this massive meaning, you've been given the means to follow it and a way to live your life that enables you to best pursue it. It sounds like a pretty good package deal. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound half bad when you stop talking about it so mystically. It sounds like a pretty good package.
Yeah.
And-
And it's not that it's easy either. It's
Yeah,
hard fucking
and that's
work.
it. And that was my point. It's like you have a solid foundation. And this is my point. You have, what matters more? The strength of the foundation you build the house on, or the strength of the house that you build on that foundation? Because you can build a really strong house on a dog shit foundation. The house will still fall apart. If the foundation goes, the house is useless. Whereas you can build a real shitty house on a solid foundation, and worst case scenario, if that house gets fucking taken off in a hurricane, you've still got the foundation. You can build another house on a foundation.
Yeah.
You can't build another foundation on a house.
Yeah.
It's not how that works.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the good thing about it. It gives you that foundation.
Yeah. And it even mentions what you had just said as well. It shows that you need to find something strong enough to withstand everything. We got it pretty good. We do have it pretty good. We no longer have to worry about looking or hunting for food because we can just go to the shops. We don't have to worry about getting severely sick and eventually dying because we can go to the doctor and get medication. It was within people's best interest to look for solutions where there was problems. And if it was what could be considered as their God, then they were acting accordingly to where it is that they need to get to, so that way the outcome could happen. It's not such a bad thing.
Yeah. I mean, if it's in your best interest to help other people because you see those other people as you, well, you want to help as many yous as you can help. So therefore making something more efficient, more effective, easier to access, it's going to be, you're going to be fulfilling that purpose.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not saying that all religions are good, because there is religions out there that...
The thing is, I'm not saying any religion is good. I don't think necessarily if you take every religion wholly, I don't think any religion is entirely good.
Yeah.
I think there are good things to find in religion, and that's what I'm saying, to find the reality within the real religion that you can take and implement into your own life to help build that foundation. Yeah. I think that's where religion nowadays is good. Where it can become a little bit murky is where it becomes, you envelop the entire religion.
Yeah.
And you become completely religious. Now, yes, that makes everything a lot more potent within the religion, but you can't tell me that doing that has zero drawbacks.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I mean. I mean, like, Christianity has had a lot to offer, especially for the development of the Western world.
Yeah.
It has prospered far greater than what other religions have prospered. People can say that what the Western world has done is held down other things from reaching its prosperity. But we also need to look at whether it's an oppression or it's just oppressed. And the thing is that although some religions may offer some types of things for different peoples living within that environment, it may not serve with the current situation we're in.
Yeah, that was more my point. That's what I'm saying. In today's day and age, the religion enveloping it as a whole may not be as beneficial. Because what I'm saying is, like, if you lived in a time where you had, and I mean literally nothing, then religion could be really handy.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, in today's day and age, because we live in a day and age of such prosperity, and the situations we're in, I mean, they're pretty all right. Like, there's nothing crazy going on.
We're not having to search for food.
Yeah. My point is that I feel like in today's day and age, it's more helpful to take pieces of different ideas, bring them together to make a foundation. Whereas I can understand completely why taking a religion up wholeheartedly 1,000 years ago was a fantastic idea. My point is now that it would probably, and I'm saying probably because the thing is, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not fucking Wikipedia. Wikipedia doesn't even know. But my point is I don't know. But I feel personally, and as my personal opinion, that you'd probably be better off taking aspects of certain religions and ideas and bringing them together for something that works for your current situation or the way you currently feel than it would have 1,000 years ago.
Yeah. I think where we can elaborate on that is that at the time where things weren't as complicated, there was more of us to give to religion in order to continue thriving.
Yeah, Facebook and Instagram and Twitter didn't exist.
Yeah, exactly. So there wasn't like things that we were having. So we didn't have to wholly give ourselves to, things like we do now. But what we have created out of striving to do better can't exist without us. So it's not that the system is there because of you being the mechanical thing that's within it, but it's there because we hold it up. So it doesn't we can get lost in that, and there is people that get lost in it, and it's quite sad. I find it sad because I too have been lost in it, thinking that all we are is just the system, and we don't exactly need to take religion in wholeheartedly, But like you said about the taking pieces and building this solid foundation and understanding that what we have done has made things far more easier than what it would have been, say, 1,000 years ago, looks far greater than looking at it from the perspective of you're just another cog in the system.
Yeah. And I think also you got to give religion props where it deserves props. I mean, a lot of common day practices, laws, things like they all come from a religious base.
Yeah.
And if I put it this way, would you rather have everyone be super religious and have all the ideas of religion, all the ideas that religion has provided up until this day, or completely obliterate religion from now and ever being in the past? And I'm talking about all the morals, all the mindsets, all the meaning, delete all of it, but still keep the humans. Which one do you think would be better off? Because I have a feeling it would probably be the religious side.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to morals.
Yeah.
And mindset and having a meaning.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I want to live in that world. Not God, no. I'd be charged with heresy. I'd be going straight to hell. I'd be damned. My parents weren't married when I was born.
Yeah,
I'd be done for.
Yeah.
But my point is that you need some of that.
Yeah.
And today is a perfect where the society we live in is a perfect example. Every Western society is a perfect example. You need a bit of that.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, it can go to shit.
It's good to understand what it is that we truly are and what it is that we do need, and not wholeheartedly give ourselves to that thing. I think it's good to be aware of both things. And I think when I love the Book of Job. The Book of Job was really good. Is that God considered Job to be his perfect man. He did what was considered right under the eye of God. And when it came to be that death had struck on his children, his body began to open up with scars and all these things. He was in pain. He lost his faith in God. And he started cursing on him, telling all these truths that others would consider to be speaking harshly against God. And when people were saying, you are talking pretty much out of your arse, you need to pull yourself together, stop saying these things, it wasn't until God came down and said to Job pretty much, you are right, but you did nothing of it. So why can you say that all these things are just this because of that when you've had no part in actually having it come to what it is now? You didn't make the bird learn how to catch the mouse on the floor when it was pitch black. You didn't do this to allow it to get to that.
Yeah.
I did. And when he looked onto the people that were saying you are wrong speaking, God turned onto them and said, you have lied against me. And basically it's just like, although what Job was saying was bad, at the same time he was still speaking what could be considered truth.
Yeah.
He investigated out of his own pain. And the people that were saying that God does unto those that are willing to give themselves wholeheartedly to him, they will be rewarded, so to say. God said unto them, you're liars. You must bear your responsibility still.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, I like that because Job had 1 foot in the water and 1 foot on dry land, and he was examining what could be considered truth and what can be observed of God's work. And because he was aware of both things, he had a greater idea, not just of what it is that can be considered beauty, but also of how it got there.
Yeah.
And why it works for it within its reasons. So within knowing what we are and what we have come from compared to what we could be, we don't have to wholeheartedly give ourselves to that.
Yeah. All
we have to do is meet in the middle and understand both worlds.
And just appreciate either side and be like, look, hey.
Exactly.
We could be a utopia, or we could be a fucking hellish landscape, but we are where we are.
Yeah.
and it's
something.
It's something.
Yeah, exactly. I've had fun.
Yeah, I think that was a good conversation. I think we'll wrap it up there because
Yeah.
otherwise this could just go on for fucking hours.
Yeah, there's just this. I mean, like, I've only read one of my notes and I've got like 9 dot points.
Maybe we'll have to do another episode at some point in the future.
7 dot points.
Yeah, that'll wrap it up, guys. Thank you for listening. Remember, chuck us a follow on Instagram and subscribe to the YouTube. Until next time, I'm Josh.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you in the next episode.
Catch you later.
Bye.